what is the KGB? Комитет государственной безопасности.
Right. So that is the Committee of State Security. Yeah, Bezopasnost. This is opasnost is a threat, right?
Threat.
Okay, and BS means is
without.
Right.
So, and I guess that directly translates to security, without threat.
So, and don't exist anymore. It was disbanded when the Soviet Union fell apart, and the successor agencies are now the SVR and the FSB. FSB supposedly the equivalent to the FBI and SVR, the CIA, but the SVR is relatively weak. And the FSB has taken on a lot of espionage and active measures, and they're much bigger and stronger. But the most capable intelligence agency in Russia is the GRU, military intelligence.
That nobody knows very much about.
That's right. When I was in the KGB, I had no idea that there was military intelligence. Nobody ever mentioned anything like that. And by the way, I recently had the pleasure to give a talk at the DIA. When they reached out to me, I didn't know they existed either.
Interesting. Yeah, that's always the question. If you want to be an intelligence agency, should the world know anything about you? Because in some sense, you want to create the legend in order to attract great, competent individuals to work for you. But at the same time, you want it to be shrouded in complete mystery. If nobody knows you exist, you might be able to operate well as an intelligence agency. That is fascinating. But FSB is the thing that carries the flag, of KGB. KGB being probably one of, if not the most sort of famous, and powerful intelligence agencies
in history. Yes,
ever.
Absolutely, 100%.
It was founded in 1954 after the death of Stalin. You've, in writing your book, looked back at the predecessors, at the history.
Right.
Is there some way in which the KGB is grounded in the culture, the spirit, the soul of its predecessors?
Oh, absolutely. They just changed names, and they changed personnel rather frequently, and that had something to do with Stalin's paranoia. From between 1923, and I don't remember what, I think it may have been the NKVD at that time. It started as a Cheka, and then it became the GPU,
it's 3 or 4 letter
NKVD,
words.
Yes. But with those name changes, you also had changes at the top. Between 1923 and 1953, when Stalin died, that is 30 years, they had 8 heads of intelligence. And of those 8, 6 were executed when they were replaced. So that's an indication that this was an organization that ate itself from the inside. The Soviet Union was the only dictatorship in history that did not rest its powers on the military. They rested its powers on the intelligence apparatus, and that thing was unstable. So you know where that leads. Eventually, if you rest your power on something that is made out of bricks that don't hold a lot of load, it will fall apart.
On sand.
Yeah.
Why was it unstable, would you say? What of human nature?
Oh, it's the paranoia. It's Stalin was always worried about the most powerful people coming after him. So he proactively killed off heads of the KGB, and he had this great purge where he got rid of a lot of his generals, really capable generals, and that cost him dearly when World War II started, because he started off with a force that wasn't as capable as it could have been.
Was it paranoia at all levels?
I believe so. I believe so. It comes from the top. And so if the top doesn't trust you, you always have to worry about your peers snitching on you.
Yeah.
Okay. So and I think we have a very similar situation in Russia today. And in this kind of atmosphere, the truth will never get to the top.
So no matter what moral rules the organization operates under, trust is fundamental to its Competence.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to extend this to my own existence. And this is kind of strange. It's almost dichotomous because I was running around lying to everybody, and I couldn't fundamentally be trusted. But the relationship that I had with the KGB was based on trust. If they don't trust me, they don't send me out. And if I don't trust them, I'm not going. And I eventually broke that trust. And they knew there was always that danger.
They knew that because something about you, or just something about human beings.
No,
that
there
can be
were
broken.
there were hints about how long my assignment would be. So 10 to 12 years. And you see, it makes sense. All right, I was becoming an American, and over time, I would become more and more American. And there was always a chance that I liked it more here than there. That I was really successful in what I was supposed to do. And it sort of happened, but in my case, it happened because of I fathered a child who I didn't want to leave when they wanted me back. So
Love always screws up
oh,
your your employment competence. Yes,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So, but they thought, that I had an anchor at home because I had a wife and a son at home, which, you got to worry about them if you defect. Because in the past, the KGB would go after family ruthlessly.
Including perhaps violence.
Yeah.
This is a hard question about the KGB because it's one of the most ruthless organizations. But in general, are there lines KGB agents at every level of the hierarchy that they would not cross? Political, legal, ethical, or does anything goes to achieve the goal?
I was only in touch with two types of agents. Well, the technical experts, the ones that taught me tradecraft, and they were like engineers, and they were in charge of the secret writing and the Morse code, shortwave radio reception, decryption, encryption, and that kind of stuff. Those were just doing their job, all right? And the others, the ones that trained me, that prepared me for life in the United States, they were nice people. They were elegant people. I don't think they would not fit into the stereotype of the ruthless gun-carrying agent.
Is it possible that you would not be aware of the parts of the KGB? I mean, it's very modular. Would you?
Yeah.
It's possible that you're not aware of the parts of the KGB that are the quote unquote muscle.
Oh, I didn't know. I would find out afterwards, after I retired and started doing some research. I had no clue.
So you're kind of operating in a bubble.
Oh, very much so. I mean, this is what the KGB did really, really well: compartmentalization, and that was based on the communist movement while it was still underground. The cells were very small, and so that maybe there were 3-4 members in one cell that knew one another, and then they had a liaison to another cell. So when the bottom line is, if you got one of those folks were caught, they could maybe betray 4 people or 3, something like that. And the KGB continued with that tradition. I have reason to believe that my handler, the person in Moscow that sort of directed me and made decisions what to do and where to go, never met me personally. There's no reason to, right? Why would? So and this actually was a big advantage over other intelligence services because you look at what the CIA does. Everybody blabs. There's a lot of leaks coming out of American intelligence. I don't think there's as many leaks coming out of the Mossad.
Strong words from Jack Barsky, by the way. So, I mean, that is a question I want to ask a little more systematically. Is there something unique about the KGB compared to the other intelligence agencies? Let's talk the British intelligence, MI6, Mossad, CIA. Is there unique cultures, spirits, souls of the different organizations that maybe somehow connect to the structures of government, connect maybe the values of the people, those kinds of things.
I believe we were all pretty much strong believers in communism and the future of the world being
in KGB.
Yes, I think that unified us to a large degree, even the technicians.
So even it wasn't something like, the parents believe this thing, but we know the truth. You really believe the story of communism.
Absolutely did, and you need to look at the time frame. The Soviet Union after World War II made quite a bit of progress in influencing the third world. I still remember when I was in middle school, we had a map, the map of the world, and it was color-coded. So red was communism, that was the Soviet Union and the eastern states, and then blue was capitalism, and then we had green, which were the third world countries, and the green slowly turned pink because a lot of third world governments, like I'm looking at Angola, I'm looking at Vietnam. A lot of these countries were very sympathetic to the Soviet Union, and so we sort of knew that this would go on like that, and eventually we would take over and pretty much overtake. That was the myth. Overtake the United States, not only militarily but also in terms of industrial production and so forth. That was a stupid pipe dream. The military, it was a standoff, as we know.
Well, stupid pipe dream. Hitler had a stupid pipe dream.
Yeah.
That he executed exceptionally effectively on, if not for a handful of military mistakes, the world could look very different today.
Well, the biggest one being invading the Soviet Union, particularly at the time that he did it, because he ran into the same thing that Napoleon ran into, General Winter.
Well, so Operation Barbarossa, within that, he could have made different decisions. For example, skipping Kiev and attacking Moscow directly, overthrowing the government. So marching, I guess that would be learning the lessons from Napoleon as opposed to a different kind of distribution of forces and then getting bogged down in the winter. But the point is, these ambitions sometimes do, the ambitions of empire sometimes do materialize in the growth and the building and the establishment of those empires, and those empires write the history books in such a way that we don't think of them as empires, or we certainly don't think of them as the bad guys. They write the history books, therefore they're the good guys.